Hi, and welcome to another episode of Diary of Migration Lawyer. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the skilled occupation lists and what they let you do and what they maybe impose a few restrictions or limitations on. The occupation lists essentially determine the type of visa that you can get, the length of stay that you'll have in Australia, and also whether or not you would be able to stay permanently in Australia. So it is worth knowing a little bit of exactly what these occupation lists are going to do for you. So there are currently 3 lists. One is the medium to long-term skills shortage list, but because that is a mouthful, we're going to call it the MLTSSL. The second one is the short-term skilled occupation list, or the STSOL, which for today we're going to call the schnitzels. And the third one is the regional occupation list, or the role. So each of those determine a different pathway, a different length of visa, and different access to permanent residency, if any, depending on where you're located in the country and what your occupation is. So most visas for skilled work in Australia, or that depend on your occupation or skilled work in Australia, will require that you have an occupation on one of these 3 lists, except for the subclass 400 visa in the highly specialised stream. You don't actually require an occupation to be on the occupation list, which is a bit of a fun fact. The MLTSSL, and you'll remember that that is the medium to long-term skill shortage list, that gives you the ability to get a temporary skill shortage, or TSS, or 482 visa for up to a period of 4 years. But it also gives you the ability to access permanent residency through employer-sponsored options, either through the temporary residence transition pathway after 3 years, or via the direct entry pathway where you would go and do a skills assessment and the employer would sponsor you. The MLTSSL will also give the ability to live in more attractive areas and not necessarily have to go and work regionally. It would also give you a better scope to be able to apply for a permanent visa in Australia as opposed to the other 2 lists. So if you do have an occupation that is on the MLTSSL, kudos to you, because that is definitely the A list. Then if we look at the schnitzels, which I'd like to think is the B list, also great, because obviously we need skilled migrants in these lists, otherwise we wouldn't have them. The schnitzels will give you access to a 2-year temporary skill shortage visa and give you the ability to apply for 1 more 2-year visa while you're in Australia. Now, there is some talk about a 3rd TSS at the moment, but it isn't actually underway at this point, only for people that are kind of legacy cases that were hit in Australia during COVID. So you've got 2 years in Australia and then the ability to apply for 2 more years. But at the moment, there's no employer-sponsored pathway available under the TSS visa program. Keep in mind, though, that something like the schnitzels list, or the B list, may give you access to some of the regional types of visas. So if you are on the short-term list and you're on, say, the 494 visa or the 491 visa, which are the regional visas, either employer-sponsored or not, the occupations on that list may then get access to regional pathways to permanent residency. At the moment, there is not really any employer-sponsored pathways available for permanent residency. They were due to be released in November 2020, but at this point, and we are recording in February of 2023, they have not yet released exactly what those visas look like. So while you might have a pathway, and while it's kind of a dictated or presumed pathway to permanent residency after you've been living and working in a regional area in certain occupations, it is the case that those regional permanent visas don't yet exist. The 3rd type of list is the regional occupation list, or the role. Now, this will give you access to a 4-year visa, but only in a regional area. The great thing about regional areas in Australia at the moment, though, is due to the fact that, Australia is a very vast nation, there are quite a lot of regional areas, and they're not too far away from some of the bigger capital cities. Now, the capital cities on the eastern seaboard are considered regional, but some towns that are quite close to those capital cities are considered regional. So for example, Brisbane is not considered regional, but parts of Gold Coast are considered regional. If we looked at Western Australia, at the moment, everything is considered regional in Western Australia. Now, you want to check the requirements on that one, because Perth kind of floats in and out as regional depending on the day and what's going on in WA at the time. And so those occupations are designated to those specific areas. But you do get access to a 4-year visa. And you could potentially have some form of access to some other regional visas available that you wouldn't necessarily want to take up if you were looking at something on the MLTSSL or the schnitzels list. So the skilled occupation list, as you can see, really can determine what your next step is in Australia. It's really worth understanding where your occupation sits within these skilled occupation lists and being able to start to plan out exactly what your journey looks like in Australia. Similarly, for a company, if you want to try and understand exactly what the employment relationship is going to look like with your staff member that you're sponsoring, it's really good to understand, okay, I know that I've got them definitely for 2 years, or I know after a period of, say, 3 years, they might look at a permanent option. It really just helps to map out exactly what the journey looks like and makes it a much better experience for both the company and the individual. So that is today's video, a little snapshot of the skilled occupation list. So again, there is 3, the MLTSSL, the schnitzels, and the role. I will leave the actual real names in the comments below, so you don't have to call it a schnitzel because no one will know what you're talking about. But that is today's video, and thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. Bye. Thanks for watching Diary of a Migration Lawyer. If you would like some more hints, tips, tricks on how to do migration yourself or with a strategic partner like a migration lawyer, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, Diary of Migration Lawyer.